Hi, and welcome to our presentation, Turn 1000 Clicks into One with python-jamf and Jctl. This presentation will include current and former University of Utah Merit Library employees. First, I'm Richard Glazer with the University of Utah Merit Library. Second will be Sam Forster from MX Technologies. Third will be Topher Nadald from KD Infotech, and last will be James Reynolds from the University of Utah School of Biological Sciences. Next, today's presentation agenda is the following: intro and background to tools and development, how it works internally, usage examples and workflows, advanced usage and package management. First, I'll cover an introduction of the background of the tools and development. Why? The first question we want to answer is why we develop these tools. Jamf Pro provides a great solution for Apple device management, but after you have in-depth knowledge and experience and have workflows and processes defined for your environment, using a web interface or tools like Jamf Admin can add roadblocks to focus, automation, and efficiency. So we decided to develop these tools to address those needs. Next, I'll cover a little background on the original development. Originally, it was developed to focus on patch management. This includes updating, deleting, replacing, and listing installer packages. It had support for patch management, including assigning a package to a patch definition, updating versions, etc. It also had support for patch version release branching, like development, testing, and production, and scoping, and assigning particular scoping to a particular patch branch. It also added support for scripting and automation. Next, I'm going to cover the evolution of the tools. Originally, the patch tool was split into two separate projects. python-jamf is a Python library that connects to a Jamf Pro server using the Jamf Pro Classic API. Jctl is a command line tool that uses python-jamf to perform actions on server objects. python-jamf is a Python library that connects a Jamf Pro server using the Classic API. The Jamf Pro Universal API is still under development by Jamf, and currently our project only supports the Jamf Pro Classic API, but we could add support in the future when it becomes mature enough and meets our project's needs. We also added support for keychains for storing your Jamf Pro credentials using Keyring Python project. Added support for PyPy to support pip installation of the tools. Currently, it supports 53 Jamf Pro record types and will continue to add more as the project continues. Jctl. Jctl is a command line tool that allows you to use the python-jamf library. It allows you to select objects, create, delete, print, and update Jamf Pro objects. It allows performing repetitive tasks quickly, provides options not available in the web GUI or other GUIs like Jamf Pro. It's similar to SQL statements, but far less complex. Next, Sam will discuss how the project works internally.
Thank you very much, Richard. Hi, I'm Sam Forster. I work with MX Technologies, and I did a lot of contribution to this tool in the early stages when I was working at the Marriott Library, University of Utah. So what we're going to go over is I wanted to cover a little bit of how it works internally. This is kind of the fundamental underlying bits of Jctl and python-jamf, but I'll mostly be focusing on python-jamf itself. So under the hood, really, we all have been there. I just wanted to provide a better alternative to curl. I want to show you a few of the configuration bits that go into python-jamf, as well as some examples, and then wanted to end on something a little bit more pragmatic that maybe you could even take python-jamf and do in your own environment. So, like I said, curl, you beautiful monstrosity. We've all been there, but the calls can get incredibly cumbersome very quickly. And even then, once you finally get the data, what are you going to do with it? Parse it in shell? I couldn't stand it. So instead, I wanted to do something better. I've been doing a lot of stuff in Python, and wanted to make a simple adapter for the API purely in Python. Fundamentally, it just uses it basically wraps the requests library, does some XML parsing for the XML responses, uses plist-lib in a few cases, and like Richard said, we use keyring to do credential storing, and then added our own server objects that are natively supported in Python. As you can see, it really doesn't take much. So the focus with this API was I wanted it to be really simple, yet really powerful. And as you can see in this example, taking 15 lines, you can update Jamf records, no problem. The conversion actually goes in. If you can see you instantiate the API itself, you get the data, very similar to what you're going to see in the classic API for the computers call. So search for a computer by name MacBook Pro, grab the JSS ID of the record, modify the name, just going in to computer general name, modifying it, and then using the API to put that data back up onto the server. Currently, Jamf API with its pure API functionality does support all classic API calls. If you were to use it in this form, you could really do anything that is already there. Configuring, though, takes a little bit. So still trying to focus on that simplicity. We have a config library that effectively goes ahead and stores your JSS hostname, as well as your username, and then puts that password using keyring so that you can effectively prompt yourself once, read those credentials from disk, and then just use the API without entering in your credentials every single time. However, if you don't configure it, every time you do an API call, it'll essentially just prompt you if it needs your credentials. Jamf records is an additional set of code that we added to more or less mimic the Jamf server objects themselves. So essentially, you can just iterate through computers. You basically import Jamf and then go per computer in Jamf computers. Like I said, or maybe I didn't say it, it uses a singleton model for the API. So if you've instantiated the API previously, it'll use those credentials. Otherwise, it'll read them from disk, and it's just very seamless. You can see lines 7 through 8 for each computer in Jamf computers. Go ahead and print the computer's ID as well as the name. Same thing can be done for several other records, such as packages. In this instance, I'm effectively just going over each package, looking for packages with a name that match Firefox. And if version 90 isn't in the package's name, it actually just goes ahead and deletes that package. Those are all valid API calls, though I'd be very careful with the delete because you will remove those objects from your JSS. Finally, I wanted to end on something pragmatic. So I don't know if you've ever gone through and updated maybe your asset tags in the Jamf computer, going in, clicking computers, general, edit, modify the asset tag. What I effectively have here is a script that would essentially go through and read all of your serial numbers from a common separated file, and then effectively iterate every single computer in Jamf Pro and go up, and if the asset tag was blank or didn't match what was in that inventory record, we'd effectively just go through and update the asset tag from that CSV. We could go through the details, but effectively, if you're looking at it, same iteration over all the Jamf records, grabbing the serial number from the record, looking for the asset tag inside of the inventory. If it's not there, do a little bit of air printing, say, hey, you didn't include this serial number, and continue on to the next. Then go through, check the asset tag. If it doesn't match or if it's blank, update it, then save the computer record. It really doesn't take much to modify python-jamf to fit your own needs. It's a very simple library and a fundamental building block of Jctl itself. So again, just to iterate everything that kind of covered, I really wanted to focus on making the API as simple as possible. It is the fundamental and foundational tool used by Jctl. It can be very easily adapted to meet your own needs. And as Richard mentioned, it is on the Python package index, PyPy. So feel free to go through and install it for yourself and try it out. Next, we'll be handing the floor over to Topher, and he'll go through a little bit more advanced, or a little bit more about Jctl itself.
Thanks, Sam. I'm Topher Nadald, and I work for KD Infotech. I'll be talking about usage examples for the workflows for Jctl. Jctl is a simple tool to perform actions that would take many actions to perform on the GUI. With this, we can perform any GUI-based search and more. We can modify policy scopes and even computer groups. And we can update and patch policies. We can also remove unnecessary junk. So let's say that you want to list all your computers. How many clicks would it take to do it in Jamf Pro versus Jctl? Well, let's see. Well, for Jamf Pro, it would take 3 clicks for 1,000. First, we would have to log in. Then we'd have to click computers. And then we have to click search. This would, so listing all the computers would take 3 clicks for 1,000. With Jctl, we can, with just the -computers command, we can specify all the computers with 1 click for all of them. How about we want to list a specific name with Jamf Pro? How many clicks do you think that would take? Well, we'd have to go into Jamf Pro, log in, click computers, make an advanced computer search, type in the name for 1110 that we're going to look for, save the search, and then add the criteria, go to criteria, add the computer name, and then click like and add the 1110. Then we would click view, save and view, and then we would get the 44 computers for 1,000. This takes 12 clicks to just get 1,000. In Jctl, we can continue with the computers, but add a regular expression with -r for 1110. This is all 1 click, and it gives us all 44 of them. What if we wanted to look out for a logout trigger, because that's going away soon? How many clicks do you think that would take? So we'd have to log in, go to policies, and drop down all the policies for the 600 ones that we have, and then go to, and then visually inspect every policy for logout trigger. This is very taxing, and I mean, you'd forget some here and there. But with Jctl and using the policies command and looking for the particular trigger logout, we can then find all the policies that use logout as a trigger with 1 click without even having to remember anything. They're all just there. What if we wanted to review all the self-service descriptions? How many clicks do you think that would take? So it would take upwards of 1,200 clicks to view each policy. So you'd have to go to policies and then click on the policy for that one. But in Jctl, we can It just takes one. And we get to see all the descriptions and a little bit more. Okay, one last example here is with removing computers that haven't checked in since 2020. How many clicks do you think that would take? Well, you'd have to continue to log in, go to computers, create an advanced computer search, create a last check-in item, and then type in, 2020 and January. Since we're going to be, deleting these computers, we're not going to save it. We're just going to click search. These computers show up, about 69 of them. We would click action, and then click delete computer and click next. And when delete computer comes up, we click delete. In Jctl, we can do the same thing with 2 clicks. We just specify the computers and the -d so that it will delete it. And what it does is it confirms the deletion. In summary, Jctl is a fast and useful tool. We can reduce the amount of clicks to 1, and it's easy to automate, even if you just know how to do shell. Very simple shell scripts. Just, you can get it done. Next, we'll have James Reynolds, and he's going to talk about more advanced usage and package management of it.
All right, thanks, Topher. I'm James Reynolds, and I work for the School of Biological Sciences at the University of Utah. I'm going to show some advanced Jctl usage and a new tool called package control. First, I'd like to show Jctl subcommands. Subcommands implement functionality for specific types of Jamf objects. We don't have a lot of subcommands right now, but here are a few examples, and I'll explain each one. Jctl patch software titles -S for subcommand. Patch policies shows the patch policies for each patch software title. It lists my software titles followed by policies. You can see here most of my software titles have 2 policies, and so I can see that one password is missing a policy here. Jctl packages -S usage shows the policies, patch policies, and computer groups that a package is referenced by. Here's some sample output. The text, no patch defined following the ARC package, tells me that the ARC package isn't defined in any patch software title. I can easily see if I'm using the latest packages or if an old package is still referenced by something. Jctl policies -S spreadsheet prints policy data so you can view policy data in a spreadsheet application. I can quickly view details about each policy on one screen. Jctl computers -apps prints a CSV file with computers on one axis and all apps and their versions on the other axis. This allows me to view all installed applications quickly. Jctl subcommands can be filtered by ID, name, regular expression, or a data search pattern, just like the regular CRUD Jctl commands. The first line on this slide prints all the apps for all computers. The second line with Jctl computers -n for name restricts that command so it only prints the apps for the computer with the name James-MBA. The third line with -S for search, general/IP address, tilde equals, the tilde equal being a regular expression match, 123.123.1 will print all apps for all computers that have IPs that match the 123.123.1 regular expression. So in this case, those second 2 lines, I'm filtering the subcommand to a certain subset of computers. So now I'd like to show how you can jumpstart a brand new Jamf server using Jctl and package control. I have a brand new Jamf server running on my machine. I set the serial number, created the first user, accepted the patch management agreement, and configured Jctl to point to my new server. I've done nothing else to the server. To get the following examples to work, I must name my packages a certain way, mainly name-version.pkg. Right now, the names are based on the names generated by auto package, but this can be changed. The version must appear exactly the same as the patch software title versions, which I'll show in a few slides. First, let's create a patch software title for Zoom. Unfortunately, I need Zoom's code 0f9 to do this. I got the code by creating the title in the web interface and then used Jctl to print the record details. We plan on automating this eventually. Once I have the code, I can type Jctl patch software titles -c for create 0f9, and it'll create the patch software title for Zoom. Because I'm modifying the server, it will ask for confirmation first. Let's create some package records for Zoom. But first, I just mentioned the naming convention. I need to print the versions for Zoom and use those in my package names. Jctl package or patch software titles -r Zoom -p for print versions slash version. That prints all those versions. The -p is for, it tells me which data portion to print. I use the -r to search names by regular expressions so that I didn't have to type out the full name for Zoom. Because parentheses are in the Jamf data and can't be changed, I must include those in my package names for the naming convention to work. So let's add those packages. I can create packages using these versions with these 3 commands. I'm not actually uploading the packages, just creating records in the database. The -c creates the records. Now let's verify everything. Jctl packages shows me the 3 packages that I have in my database, and Jctl patch software titles shows me the patch software title that I've created. Now let's define the packages for Zoom. Because packages are so central to managing computers, we created a tool specifically to work with packages called package control. Package control -d will define all packages for all patch titles. Here it says it found 3 Zoom packages, and it went ahead and defined them for me. Now when I look at Zoom, it shows the packages that are defined for each version. This is what the web interface looks like, and you can see the packages defined on the right. So how many clicks does this save? It takes 7 clicks to define 1 package for 1 patch software title. It would take over 1,000 clicks to define 143 patch software titles. Package control -d would turn those 1,000 clicks into 1. Now let's get a policy for Zoom. Let's create a policy for Zoom. First, we need the ID of the software title. Here I print out all the details with -l for long, like ls-l, so I can get the ID. In this case, it's 1. Now I can create some patch policies. Patch policies require 3 arguments: the name, the ID of the patch software title, and the version. So I've created 3 policies, one named auto and one named SS for self-service. Now let's move the auto from the 5.7.0 package to the 5.7.3 with package control. Without any arguments, package control will go into interactive mode and loop through package groups, basically packages that are similarly named, in this case Zoom, and it lets you do various things with them. I can select the packages or the policies by the number next to them. Let's select auto by typing 2. Then it asks me what to do. So I type P to promote. It asks me what package I want to use, so I want to type 3 to select the latest package. And now we can see that auto is using the latest package. If I had more packages, then package control would go through all my packages, letting me promote or demote all policies, patch policies, or even smart group criteria that are set to packages installed by Jamf. In summary, I hope you can see how easy it is to interact with the API using python-jamf. If you don't want to code Python, Jctl and package control give you access to a great deal of the API for generic CRUD and more advanced functionality, all from the command line. So, I must say, this project is alpha right now. We have almost everything in place that we want on the outside. The internals might change a bit, and we are only starting to use it ourselves on our own servers. Another contributor might add an interactive repo, and we think this is a cool idea. But to get this to 1.0, we need to lock down Jctl's usage, improve our documentation, and test everything thoroughly. So that's our plans. We're recording this several months before JNUC. So for the latest status, check the website, and maybe we will have reached 1.0 by the time JNUC happens. Here's the GitHub web pages for the project. You can also find us on the Jctl channel on the Mac Admins Slack. I hope this gives you a taste of what you can do with Python, Jamf, and Jctl, and thank you for listening.